Kevvect influences on the Winter Soldier movie. In a previous section, I went over the special thanks section of the movie credits to Captain America the First Avenger. So now we're going to do it for Captain America the Winter Soldier. First up, we've got Brian Michael Bendis. He's a pretty well known comics writer of the last few years. In particular, why I think he's on this list is because he wrote a mini series called Secret Warriors, which was about S.H.I.E.L.D. being infiltrated by Hydra. While it wasn't the exact same storyline, that's a big enough thing that I believe that's why he's on here. Number two is Ed Brubaker, who was the writer of the Winter Soldier series and therefore co-creator of the Winter Soldier persona of Bucky, and also he's just a big influence on Cap mythos. Gene Colan co-created the Falcon as he was the artist on the Falcon's introduction in Captain America 117. Gabriel Del Otto is actually the person on this list I'm least sure of. He's done a lot of cover work, but not much interiors, and as far as I could tell, he didn't create anybody that was in this series, which is what most of these people are for, so I'm not sure. One of the things he's done the internal art on is a miniseries called Secret War, but it's not the Secret Warrior series that we were talking about for Brian Michael Bendis, so I have to assume it's that, but I couldn't find anything out to confirm it. Marko Djordjevic is on this list because he designed the Commander Rogers costume in the comics, which got translated to be the stealth suit in this movie. Kieran Dwyer was the artist that introduced Crossbones, aka Brock Rumlow. So while Brock doesn't show up in his Crossbones persona in the movie, it makes sense for Kieran to be in here. Steve Epting was the artist that helped create the Winter Soldier persona for Bucky, and he was also the artist for a large portion of the Winter Soldier story. Mark Gruenwald was the writer on the issue that introduced Crossbones and also wrote the whole backstory for Crossbones and everything. Bob Harras was the writer of a miniseries called Nick Fury vs. S.H.I.E.L.D., which is about Nick doing some digging and finding out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been corrupted. Not by Hydra, but by other people. So while that feels a little similar to the Brian Michael Bendis storyline, I guess they took elements from each. With how often S.H.I.E.L.D. gets corrupted, it's a wonder they keep it around. Don Heck was the artist on the issue where Black Widow was introduced, so while the costume isn't the same, he helped create the character in general. Stan Lee, there's probably a lot we could argue for why he's on this list, but specifically, he was the writer co-creator of The Falcon. Paul Neary was the artist on the Nick Fury vs. S.H.I.E.L.D. story that we were talking about with Bob Harras. Don Rico was the writer on the issue that introduced Black Widow, along with, artist Don Heck. Though he actually used a pen name of N. Korok. Surprisingly absent are Joe Simon and Jack Kirby on this list. They created Captain America, but I couldn't see any mention of them anywhere in the credits. Also, Jack Kirby was the sole creator of Arnim Zola, who was in the movie, so I feel like he should